While most of the time we play video games to escape from the challenges of the modern world and turn our brains off for a bit, sometimes you just need something with a little bit more depth. So, you pop in a game like Portal, XCOM or StarCraft and engage yourself a little bit, beyond just some chaotic button presses. These games ask you to think a little bit about what you're actually doing, and can even make a numbskull like me feel a little smarter for having beaten them. But what happens when you aren't just an average person? What happens when you're a certified genius, simply looking to play something that will test the limits of your complex mind? Well, there are games out there built specifically for that purpose. Games that aren't necessarily trying to make sure you have a fun time, but rather designed to be as complicated as possible. These games don't rest until anyone less than a hyper-intelligent human working at full capacity is curled up on the floor in the fetal position, sobbing uncontrollably at their inability to understand just what the hell is happening. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 video games that take a genius to beat. Number 10. Kerbal Space Program. If you've ever wanted to know why the old "it's not rocket scientist" line became such a cliche saying for high levels of intelligence, then look no further than Kerbal Space Program. In Kerbal, you're tasked with creating a spaceship that will make it to the farthest reaches of the universe. While enough trial and error can net you a rocket that doesn't immediately explode upon takeoff, if you want to really explore the tremendous depths of this game, you are going to have to possess the kind of knowledge typically not seen outside of the labs of NASA. No detail that goes into the process of sending a crew into space is omitted, and even the simplest of actions often require hours of experimentation just to get right. So yeah, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to play Kerbal, but you would better be prepared to think like one if you're going to see it as anything more than the world's most entertaining galactic crash simulator. Number 9. Discworld. While there have been many difficult adventure games over the years that tasked you to solve elaborate puzzles, few are quite as vindictive as Discworld. Based on the works of author Terry Pratchett, Discworld's puzzles often require you to tweak your brain in order to think on the same level as the mad genius writer himself. Even the most seemingly simple actions like retrieving a disguise require extraordinary feats of brain prowess. For one, in order to complete this puzzle, you'd have to travel back through time in order to put your past self in an elaborate scenario that will ever so slightly tweak the future, that will eventually allow you to retrieve just what you need. Sounds simple, right? But the old adventure game standby of just, clicking on everything until something happens won't work here, as you are often required to complete tasks in a very specific way and will be punished severely for any mistake. Discworld is an insanely creative and humorous piece of gaming history, but it is no exaggeration to say that an average human trying to beat it without help from a walkthrough would spend literally months doing so. Number 8. The Talos Principle. After Portal became a smash hit, the world received a wave of similar titles that asked players to solve a series of elaborate puzzle rooms in order to work their way to the end of a story. Yet of all the narrative-based puzzle games out there, few ask more of their players than the Talos Principle. While it starts off simple enough, you soon begin to acquire a series of abilities that in turn must be used to solve the next puzzle. But while most puzzle game solutions make you say, "Why didn't I see that?" the Talos Principle will have you saying, "How in the hell is anyone ever supposed to have known that?" Even better, the game is anchored in a story rich in philosophical musings on religion and existence. So not only are you unlikely to see the end of the game, but there's a good chance you wouldn't understand just what the hell is happening even if you did. Number 7. Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. A game that combines the fun of bomb defusal with the joy of making all your friends hate each other? Finally, Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes requires one player to inspect a digital bomb and call out its components to one or more players with a bomb defusal manual, who are not allowed to look at the bomb directly. They in turn relay to the bomb diffuser how to proceed, all through verbal communication alone. The mechanics of the bombs themselves are often incredibly elaborate, as are the methods of disarming them. Only through tremendous concentration and an ability to communicate with your partners on a professional level do you have a chance to defuse the game's more difficult explosives. Consequently, it's annoying enough that the game asks you to possess genius levels of intellect anyway, but it's downright insulting for you to require a whole team of people on the same wavelength as you. Number 6. The Digital Combat Simulator series. Digital Combat Simulator, or DCS for short, is the most brutal flight simulator ever made. Nobody ever said it was easy to fly helicopters, planes, or jets, but where DCS separates itself from others in the genre is by asking players to operate some of the most complicated machines on Earth. While an expertly piloted enemy vessel is trying to shoot you down, is enough to make even the most seasoned gamers feel overwhelmed. It's enough to make you hope that this isn't actually an accurate simulation, just so you don't have to imagine yourself absolutely failing if you were ever required to be a real combat pilot. Number 5. Hacknet. Much like shooting 2 guns while flying through the air, if hacking was as easy as it looked in the movies, then everyone would be doing it. As Hacknet goes to show know though, it's not as easy as putting on a pair of cool sunglasses and typing randomly on a keyboard. This stealth-stylized hacking simulator forces you to use actual hacking tactics in order to solve the mysterious death of a famous hacker. For the most part, this means staring at screens of generic code without much guidance at all of what to actually do with it, or what it will all lead to. As any good programmer will tell you, half of the time success is accidental, and the same principle is in play when figuring out this game. Hacknet isn't so much a fun game to play as it is a cruel training exercise that only rewards players the chance to dive even deeper into its labyrinth of complex coding. Number 4. Space Chem. If you've ever dreamed of quitting your day job to pursue the exciting world of chemical engineering, then this is the game to put you off. On paper, Space Chem is a puzzle game, and just like any puzzle game, you're given a scenario that must be solved through the rules that the game has outlined for you. Unlike most puzzle games though, the rule set here isn't so much deep as it is infinite. We're talking about a depth on a molecular level here, where even the slightest toe out of bounds can completely undo your work, and take hours and hours to correct. It's best not to dwell on that possibility though, as most players don't even get past the first few minutes to find out what it is you're supposed to be doing. If we ever live in a Blade Runner style future where highly intelligent computers and man are indistinguishable, we'll easily be able to tell who is who by seeing if they can complete this game. Number 3. Victoria 2. Developer Paradox Development Studio have a reputation for creating impossibly deep and elaborate strategy games that make most real-time strategy games look like they're playing with tiny army men in a child's sandbox. Victoria 2 is their complicated response to these seemingly simple titles. In most strategy games, you simply direct and manage your available resources in order to meet some kind of victory scenario. Victoria 2 is similar in that regard, but here your actions are only made after you've analysed hundreds of screens of data. And even then, it's not always easy to know just what the consequences of your actions are, and the tiniest statistic can undo even the best laid plans. Likewise, even if you are able to somehow absorb the wealth of information available to you and analyse it perfectly, you are really only giving yourself a better chance in a game where victory is never certain. If you don't have years and years of real-world military or global political experience with a dual degree in global history and statistics, then it's still unlikely that you'll master Victoria 2. Number 2. EVE Online. Okay, I admit it, you can't actually beat EVE Online. But if we're being perfectly honest, it's pretty unlikely that most people even figured out how to start the game up. For many, the idea of a massively multiplayer online game that allows you to live a life in a near infinite space is a dream come true. But before you start piloting your voyages across the galactic unknown in search of fortune and adventure, know that EVE Online is more accurately described as a spreadsheet simulator. If you ever want to hurt your brain, and I know we all do, go beyond the epic promotional screenshots of the game itself and look at the actual gameplay screens of some of the top players. Believe it or not, that seemingly impossible series of menus, numbers, and icons must all be mastered in order to accomplish anything in EVE Online. It's difficult to imagine that actually living a life in outer space could be even more complex than this difficult game. Number 1. Dwarf Fortress. How complicated is Dwarf Fortress? There's a 238-page fan-made illustrated manual out there that mostly just talks about getting started with the game. That's how complicated. Described by its developers as a game of elaborate challenges and devastating setbacks, Dwarf Fortress is more commonly known as the most complicated video game ever made. Its graphics are little more than basic ASC2 characters that are meant to represent a large variety of items and locations, and you are given zero indication from the game as to what you are supposed to be doing with them or how to do it. What makes that even worse though is that Dwarf Fortress is a roguelike, meaning that the world is randomly generated each time, and that a single error can mean permanent death. Needless to say, this makes learning the game naturally something of an issue. The upside of this world-building game is that it has enough depth to justify a lifetime of exploration, but considering that you could learn to speak 3 languages while playing the piano and juggling with your feet in the time it took you to get even a firm grasp on Dwarf Fortress's opening, you got to really ask yourself, is it worth it, and what am I going to get out of this? So that's our list. I've been Josh, and I need to go have a lie down.
Hey guys, thanks for making it to the end of the video. Aren't you a star? Don't forget to subscribe below, and also the people who made this video, they're right here, so go and follow them and give them some love. If you want to see more content, there's probably some stuff flowing up above my head. Why not check it out? It could be fun. I'm not your dad.